Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is Sunday, May the 6th, 2018, TowerGate 422. TowerGate Day 422. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Sunday morning. I imagine you're sitting there with your coffee, watching the video to see what the hell is going to happen next, or what happened overnight, or what have you. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that two-parter on Saturday. There's a lot there to cover, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Now, unfortunately, it appears that I may have given the lovely and talented Maura a migraine as a result. So, my most sincere apologies, Maura, if the two-parter gave you a migraine. I'm very sorry to hear that, and I hope you've recovered and are sipping on some hot chocolate or taking some Advil, or something. I hope you feel much better and maybe enjoying the Sunday morning video. We have some good news and some, well, let's just go through it. I think you'll feel fine when we get to the end of it. Let's see. Well, funeral arrangements are being made by Senator McCain. Mr. Magoo, Senator Magoo, is on his way to achieving room temperature. The funeral plans include Vice President Pence, but not Trump, specifically stating there will be no Trump at his funeral. Well, this is Senator Magoo's one last chance to get one last dig at Trump, because he knows Trump can't get back at him because, of course, he'll be dead. So this just shows us that Senator Magoo is just living up to the nickname that was given to him by his shipmates in the Navy. And maybe that will be on his headstone. It should read in very large letters, McNasty. And let's not forget his role in the deep state coup. Does anybody like Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray? Does anybody like FBI Director Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray? No. Nobody likes him. I don't like him. I know you don't like him. I don't know anybody that does like him. It's like he doesn't do anything. Trump should fire him too. I know someone else who doesn't like FBI Director Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray. Chuck Grassley doesn't like No Shit Sherlock Ray. The FBI just disclosed to Grassley that they have not requested information from the personal email accounts of Peter's Been Stroking Us and Loose Lisa Page. The recent text release shows that Strzok and Page were using private email accounts to conduct government-related business. That is a violation of FBI policy, and it is probable cause to seize those email accounts, those communications. And Grassley is not very happy. Yeah, I mean, this would be investigative malpractice. We're not just talking about some evidence that this was the case. Having read the recent Page-Strzok text myself probably 30 times now, anyone who's read it quite a few times, even with the redactions, even with the coded language, even with the various jargon and things like that that's in there, it's hard to make sense of it all. But after you read it a bunch of times, there's no doubt. But there's actual statements in there, at least on two occasions I can think of, where Strzok literally says those words to Lisa Page. He says, just sent you on the private Gmail account, and I forget the exact term he used, but it's essentially, it's government business. He tells her that he just sent her documents that are, work-related government products on the private Gmail account. There's no question that they did that. So you're investigating these people, and you find out, and that's probably where the really juicy stuff is, don't you think? I mean, if you're a criminal investigator and you stumble onto that text, you go, oh, uh-oh, boom. I mean, you immediately go and find out. And let's take it, let's look at it another way. Okay, we're talking about, I don't know if Christopher Wray is suggesting that he's speaking on behalf of the Inspector General or not, but I guess he's saying, as far as he's concerned, his own FBI internal sort of investigation, they chose not to look at those or get those email accounts from Strzok and Page and look further into them. And of course, Grassley is now demanding that they do so. Now, it is also possible that they didn't do it because the IG is doing that. That would be the only thing I can think of. And I cannot imagine in my wildest dreams that people, these investigators, nearly 500 of them, working for the Inspector General, would see that. And remember, we are just now, within the past couple of weeks, getting these texts. 2-3 weeks ago, we got these texts. These texts were probably in the possession of Horowitz. Let's see, he first interviewed Lisa Page in April this past year. So a year and a month, roughly almost exactly a year ago, he first interviewed Page. And we know within like 3 months, he had pretty much had broken up the gang there. So we have to assume that somewhere in that 3-month period of time, May, June, July, somewhere in that period of time, he had seen these texts and knew that Page and Strzok were using a private Gmail account, Dropbox type situation, to communicate further. And he also, remember, we saw the conversation from Lisa Page text releases many months ago, that they had this secret society, and we had members of Congress on the Judicial and the Intelligence Committee go on Fox News and say, yes, we've had FBI guys come in and tell us about the fact that they had this kind of secret society and they had off-site meetings. So Horowitz is aware of every bit of this. I can find it, like I say, it would be investigative malpractice to be an investigator and to realize, have the person that you're the target of your investigation telling you that they have communications in another location, and you go, yeah, well, that's interesting. Oh well, let's see, what else have we got? You know, I mean, come on, I'm not buying it. The only reason I can think of that Ray could say that they have not looked at those communications is because it's maybe the FBI internal investigation is not doing that it's probably the IG. Let's hope that that's the reason. But either way, Grassley has responded, and now he's demanding this information and, quite honestly, wanting Ray to explain. So, to answer the question, that is why nobody likes FBI Director Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray. Let's move on. Trey Gowdy has sent a letter to Horowitz to cancel next week's meeting. Gowdy wants the hearing as close to the release as possible. On April 23rd, Horowitz sent a letter to Gowdy to advise him that there would be a delay in the release because of new information relating to the Rotten Reverend Clinton email investigation. Apparently, he's recently began interviewing new witnesses following new leads. On Friday, Rodenstein said that, quote, the IG report will be out in the next few weeks, unquote. Then we have The Last Refuge is saying their hearing, it will be May 18th. And Horowitz himself has said sometime in May. He's still expecting the release sometime in May. So what's going on here? What can we make of this? Is this bad news for the Rotten Reverend Clinton and Comey and Lynch? Or is the Inspector General Horowitz part of the swamp and is now dragging out the report to help cover up the coup that he undoubtedly discovered? Well, again, we just don't know. I mean, it's a 50-50 gamble. Maybe I'd go 60-40, maybe 70-30 tops, that Horowitz is totally straight up and he's not dragging his feet on purpose as part of the coup plot, because it does keep getting dragged out. But there is other evidence to suggest that this is legitimate. Trey Gowdy, as most of you know, makes me nervous. I know he's got a lot of fans on this site. That's fine. But, sometimes I question some of his maneuvers and some of the things he says and supports, including Mueller. Gowdy's a big fan of Uncle Bob, and I don't understand it. He's a big fan of Rodenstein, and I don't understand, although he's been coming down on Rodenstein about the documents and things like that, but he's not questioning Rodenstein and appointing Mueller and the investigation. He's all for that. But anyway, let's take a look at something here. The Last Refuge is saying that the newest information is that Horowitz is recently began focusing on the Weiner laptop issues and the fact that McCabe sat on the information for 5 weeks. He took specific action to hide the content and the investigation itself, or lack of. Horowitz is likely speaking to FBI and U.S. attorneys from New York to Maine Justice. Yeah, so I can understand that. It's been a couple months now. Not 2 months, but about a month and a half, I'd say, that the recent flap with the Weiner, that we started hearing about this fight that took place or what have you, where these FBI officials down in New York basically complained that McCabe was sitting on the information that was on the emails on Weiner's computer that had the Hillary Clinton State Department emails, and they were threatening that they were going to quit, resign, and go public if Comey and McCabe and the FBI in D.C. did not immediately announce or begin an investigation. So that's what led to the phone call with McCabe and Loretta Lynch, which we saw in the IG's release of the McCabe findings. We can see that conversation that occurred. Well, that's one. There were several conversations. And so apparently that's what Horowitz is looking into now. So, he's interviewing, he's going to all these guys and saying, hey, tell me what happened. Apparently, you guys discover this laptop. Then as you're going through it looking for Anthony Weiner's dick pics and evidence that he's texting minors, you stumble onto thousands and tens of thousands of what have you, State Department emails. And then you turn that information over to the FBI in D.C., and they sit on it for over a month, and at some point you decide that they're obstructing an investigation, and you threaten. So basically, this is what is going to be learned by Horowitz. We already know that. This is already public. But he's probably getting some details and probably some witnesses to obstruction. You see, so McCabe and Lynch are deeply involved, and Comey as well, in this. Again, this takes it to a new level. So I think that it could be legitimate for the delay, because this did happen. We know that this recent flap up, and then the learning that Loretta Lynch made these phone calls. They had a couple of conference calls with McCabe and Lynch and a couple of these people from the FBI. We know that Lynch made various threats. We know that they sent their own team in there. Lynch and Comey sent their own team into the Southern District of New York to put the kibosh on what was going on down there in the Southern District of New York with the U.S. attorneys and the FBI agents who were threatening basically a mutiny. So that would make sense. And if he's taking the time to interview witnesses and various things, he's got Mr. Huber there to prosecute. I mean, this would look, if I were the Rotten Reverend Clinton and Comey and Lynch and McCabe as well, I would be very, very nervous if this is actually what's going on and Horowitz is actually pursuing this, because this is another obvious obstruction and proof, more evidence of the email cover-up and the cover-up of the operation or the investigation, which was a non-investigation. So, what are we learning here? Well, that Gowdy and other members will know when the report is coming out, because they'll be setting up a briefing to Congress with the IG, and the IG is going to be the one to let them know. he's going to have to let them know, hey, I'm going to be releasing at such and such a time, so when do you want to have this hearing? So now we know that we're going to get a little heads up before the report comes out, because Gowdy has just told us that he wants to make sure that the hearing with Horowitz is as close to the release date as possible. So we're going to know very soon, but my patience is running out, man. I'll tell you what. Get it out. Give us what you got and keep working on it. You know? And we also learned that Anthony Weiner's laptop, and remember, the file that they found all this stuff in, the State Department emails and all this stuff, was in a file called the insurance policy. So, you know, the FBI's got their insurance policy. That's to take out Trump. Anthony Weiner's got his insurance policy on his laptop, and that's probably to have incriminating evidence on the rotten reverend and his wife, quite honestly, and the government, the State Department, because he's got this information, and maybe he could use this to, he thought he could use this to manipulate the legal system in case he got in trouble. He could use it to worm his way out of something. So it turned out to be that this insurance policy may end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy for Anthony Weiner, because now Horowitz is looking at this laptop, and these State Department emails are probably what he's interested in. I don't think Horowitz is interested in the dick pics and the texting the minors. That's not what he's looking for. If Horowitz, and we don't know right now, we just know he's interviewing witnesses who are these FBI agents and these U.S. attorneys in New York who are going to revolt, resign, what have you. We don't know. This doesn't tell us if, in fact, Horowitz is trying to get his hands on, or if he even has these State Department emails that were on Weiner's laptop. Now, if he gets access to those and finds things there, he could probably turn that over to Huber, who would prosecute the rotten Reverend Clinton on the emails on the laptop of Anthony Weiner, which are not supposed to be there. So, man, this rabbit hole continues to just get deeper and deeper. Whoa. Former U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy. Former U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy. Maybe he watched my video yesterday. Or maybe not. But McCarthy comes out and tells Fox that, quote, Mueller was not assigned a criminal investigation, but instead given instructions to continue the FBI counterintelligence operation originated by Piers Benstrokinus in 2016. Exactly the point that I was making in the videos yesterday. Obviously, he's read the Page Strzok text about 30 times like I have. Now, this is exactly what you see. Once you begin to understand what's going on here, the text laid out very simply that essentially Mueller came in and took over the existing operation and investigation, or whatever you want to call it. This is exactly what is obvious. And this is exactly what this judge in federal court saw previous Friday, which we'll be talking about in just a minute. So Andrew McCarthy noticed this as well. And like I said, I hope we find out. I don't know if there's evidence, proof. Maybe Fitton will find it when he gets the communications between Comey and Mueller. But more and more, it looks like this entire thing was a setup. I mean, who are the people that who are facing the most serious downfall here? It would be people like Clinton, Comey, Rodenstein, Mueller, because of their involvement in the Uranium One deal. Mueller and Clinton and Rodenstein are all deeply involved in the Uranium One deal, and they want to prevent that from being investigated, or the truth coming out about that. And so you can see how with people inside the small group, they could work with Rodenstein. And so I'm not suggesting that Comey allowed himself to be fired as a setup, or Rodenstein, that they had a plot where Rodenstein said, yeah, well, I'm going to fire you, Jim. Because remember, Rodenstein and Comey are good buddies, along with Mueller. They're all good friends. So when you look at it, you're saying, okay, so Rodenstein fired his good buddy Comey? Why would he do that? That was horrible. Well, unless they had another plan. Rodenstein recommends that Trump fire Comey. Trump says, okay. Along with other reasons, fires Comey. The very first call, one of the first calls Comey makes, is to Mueller. Whose interest are they defending mostly? The rotten Reverend Clinton and all those who were a part of the Uranium One deal. That's the one thing they all have in common. Forget the other stuff going on, the deep state coup, fixing the investigation, but look at what all they did for the rotten Reverend Clinton. Fixing the investigation, they all are caught up in the Uranium One deal. And maybe that the rotten Reverend Clinton has leverage over them. Maybe that's what she told them, and maybe she's running this operation because she's sitting back telling Rodenstein and Mueller through probably her intermediaries that, hey, if they get me in this uranium, they start investigating me in Uranium One, that takes you down with me. You guys go down, Mueller, you and Rodenstein go down before I do. You know what I mean? So Mueller and Rodenstein, Hillary is a liability that they have to protect. Because if they don't, if Hillary goes down, they go down with her. In fact, they will likely for sure go down. They would go down. She might wiggle off the hook, but they probably wouldn't. So they're protecting their own butts as well as the rotten Reverend Clinton. So we know from the text that essentially Mueller was selected. And then Rodenstein simply did the official proclamation. Mueller's the special counsel. The day after, he walked him into Trump's office and tried to get him to be FBI director so it could happen that way. But when that got shot down, they said, okay, fine. What are we going to do now? Trump has shot down Uncle Bob. He doesn't want him to be the FBI director. That's a problem. How do we get Uncle Bob in there? Rodenstein? Well, I'll appoint him as a special counsel. You can see how this entire thing is just one series of reactions by these deep state players as things are moving along. They're having to improvise as they go along and do things, to try to keep this thing breathing and keep it alive and keep it moving. It's just extraordinary what you see here. So this is, as I said, this is exactly what this judge saw in court on Friday morning, and he's questioning the legitimacy of the special counsel, especially in the type of case that has been brought against Manafort. But it just shows you that this is one deep rabbit hole that we're dealing with. Now, this judge down there, what's his name? Judge T S Ellis. Judge T S Ellis has given them 15 days to produce the secret document that supposedly grants the authority of Mueller to investigate these issues about Manafort. And he knows that he's not going to find that evidence. So we'll get into that here in just a second as we move forward here. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing, and I'll pick up in a minute on that. So Rodenstein obviously leads us to Rodenstein, and he definitely has to go. Rodenstein has to go, and it appears that Judge Ellis may be the one who will take him out or force him to step down. Possibly, even indict him or recommend him for criminal referral or something. But I think that it's Judge Ellis is going to give Rodenstein the final push here in about 2 weeks when he gets his hands on that secret document, unless they fight it. In which case, he'll probably throw the case out. If they don't produce this document, he'll probably throw the case out. Be my guess. So Rodenstein appointed Mueller to take over the counterintelligence operation, the insurance policy, which began by the FBI by the small group in July 2016. This gave Mueller a Title I surveillance warrant that could be used to conduct surveillance on Trump and his associates. It's a very sneaky move, and it all had to be set up beforehand. And the issue here, and the issue the judge is raising, is that this is very shady. Just the way it all went down. Rodenstein signs off on the extension of this Title I surveillance warrant, which is a full-blown, you can listen to everything. You get everything with the Title I. It's the highest level surveillance you're going to get. Title I, FISA. is what he got. Mueller walked in thanks to Rodenstein and inherited a Title I FISA, which gave him the ability to monitor and collect communications from all these people, including conversations of Manafort as well. So now he's got Manafort's communications, all based on this Title I FISA. Well, the problem is that the type of charges that they're leveling against Manafort would be a Title III type situation, which would require a totally different type of warrant, which would require going to a judge and getting a Title III warrant, which would be, you would have to show probable cause. So here is where the problem comes in for Judge Ellis. You have a Title III criminal, not investigation at this point, but a criminal prosecution, a Title III criminal prosecution based on a Title I FISA warrant. And it's in the way it was put together, it looks like there was malice on the part of the government, that they had prior intent before getting the warrant for all this to happen the way it did. This was pre-planned. This wasn't that they discovered something in the process of an investigation and then they went and got a Title III warrant to surveil Manafort. This all came as a result of a Title I extension of a Title I FISA warrant, which was largely based on a salacious and unverified dossier. You see, there's a lot of problems with this warrant. And if Judge Ellis wants to go and take it to the next level and say, well, it's incompetence, or it's it's a scheme, it's a trick, but stops short of malice, Rodenstein and Mueller will just be embarrassed. But if Ellis wants to, and he feels like he sees it and can prove it and believes that it exists, that there's malice there, that they did this with malice as part of a scheme, then that's a criminal violation. And this Judge Ellis could give a criminal referral himself to a criminal referral on Rodenstein and Mueller and anyone else who was a part of the intent, the malice, the intent when they got this warrant or used this warrant as part of the investigation. Very, very interesting stuff. It could very well be this Judge Ellis that blows this entire Mueller investigation out of the water and exposes Rodenstein and his criminal complicity of acting with malice and the search warrant that was used and the type of search warrant. Very, 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 very troubling. If you're Rodenstein, you've got to be nervous, man. You really do. Let's go through Rodenstein's conflicts of interest, and these are undeniable, which were also mentioned by Judge Ellis. He mentioned some of these things. I'm going to give you a few more. As we know, Rodenstein signed off on one of the FISA warrants, maybe two, with malice, possibly with malice. We know that he signed off on one for sure, maybe two, and we know what he signed off on. Essentially, information from a salacious and unverified dossier, which was political opposition research paid for by Clinton. You always find Clinton, don't you? When you look behind these criminal frontmen, who is it back in the shadows that they're working for or apparently protecting? Clinton. Rodenstein is the one that wrote the letter advising Trump to fire Comey. Rodenstein is in fact a witness in an obstruction case. And we saw that some of those questions, alleged questions to Trump from the Mueller team, had something to do with the obstruction, which is a joke. The Article 2 of the Constitution simply states very simply that the president, the executive branch, can fire anyone he wants. I mean, you can argue it all day long, but ultimately that's going to be the deciding factor. There was no criminal, Trump was not a criminal target or anything like that of an investigation. Mueller and Comey have both stated that. Rodenstein has stated that. So there is no case for obstruction. and you can't take a president to court anyway. You can only impeach him. You can only get rid of a president. The president only goes away 3 ways. Number 1, he dies. Number 2, he resigns. Number 3, he's impeached. He cannot be criminally prosecuted in a court, nor forced to sit in front of a grand jury and explain what he was thinking or feeling when he did something 17 months ago. It's nonsense. Rodenstein is conflicted because of his 25-year association with Comey and Mueller, and we need to find out if we need to find out the communications between Comey, Mueller, and Rodenstein in that week from the day that Comey was fired, that day, until the day that Rodenstein appointed Mueller 7 days later. We need to know the conversations that happened between those 3 and even Reverend Clinton or some intermediary of hers. You just can smell it, man. You just know it's there. You just know it's there. Rodenstein walked Mueller, of course, as we mentioned earlier, to Trump's office, wanted him to be the FBI director. Trump decided against that, rejected him. The very next day, Rodenstein makes Mueller the special counsel. That's another good reason he's conflicted. Rodenstein has been named by Congress and 13 members in a criminal referral to the Justice Department, based on the fact that he signed off on the FISA warrant and other things. So he's now, there's been a criminal referral against him to the Justice Department. Another reason why he should resign. Rodenstein doctored his resume to cover up his role in the Rotten Reverend Clinton's TowerGate scandal back in the 90s, where he helped Clinton get off the hook. And how did the Rotten Reverend Clinton get off the hook in the TravelGate scandal? Well, you see, when the Clintons came in, the Rotten Reverend Clinton ordered all the people in the travel office be fired because she wanted to put her good friends, the Tomlinsons, in there, and all their friends. Now, keep in mind, the people who work at the travel office are career, people work at the White House. They've been there for 20, 30 years. They work for many presidents, many administrations. They arrange travel and things like that for the president and people in the White House. So the Rotten Reverend Clinton comes in, and she basically tosses them all out, and then there's a big stink about it. And so then they come out, the Clintons, and level false charges against the top guy there at the travel office and drag this poor guy through the mud, financially bankrupt him, destroy his life. His name was Billy something or other. They destroyed him, only to find out later that he never did anything wrong. There was no corruption. There was no problem with missing funds. There was nothing going on at all. The man was just targeted by the Clintons as a scapegoat to explain why Hillary ordered the firing of all those people at the TravelGate. So this resulted in a prosecutor digging into this investigation. And at the end of the day, the place that we got to, and Rodenstein was instrumental in this defense for the Rotten Reverend Clinton. What we found out was that everybody knew that it was Clinton, Rotten Reverend Clinton, who ordered those people to be fired. But the reason she wasn't prosecuted is because they looked at it and determined the defense, the Rodenstein defense, was that, well, she's just the first lady. She doesn't have the authority to fire anybody. She's not the president. She's not the attorney general. She's not the chief of staff. She's not any official position. She's just the first lady. She can't officially have been the one responsible for the firing because she never had the official authority to do so, even though everybody knew the Rotten Reverend ordered the firing. There you go. That's how the Rotten Reverend Clinton can wiggle off the hook. Rodenstein is refusing to turn over documents requested by Congress, recently saying that he doesn't believe Congress has oversight of DOJ records. Sessions needs to unrecuse himself. He needs to fire this rat, and he needs to shut it down. Shut it down. Finally, Mike Rogers has officially turned over command of the NSA to Army General Paul Nakasone. Rogers will now be free to testify on FISA issues during his tenure. He could even be a witness. So that's good news. Maybe he can go on Fox and tell the truth. And we have word that Baker and Page were granted some form of process leniency, but not immunity. What does this tell us? It basically tells us that they have served their purpose. And now it's time to go. For them and for me. Thank you so much. I'll be back tomorrow. You guys have a good night. Bye.